Hi, my name is Bernhard and I'm a hobby pilot for smaller aircraft, and today I would like to show you the cost of your private pilot's license in Europe. I'm from Austria, living in Innsbruck, a small city in the middle of the Alps, and right here at this airport is where I made my private pilot's license. European pilot licenses aren't as cheap as they are in the United States, and therefore I would like to show you not only what I paid, but what you can budget with if you were to start with your very own flight training. As it is very hard to give an exact price tag, we will therefore split our prices between a low and a high. I will put my very own payments right down in the middle for reference. Now first off, a minimum of 45 hours of flight time are required as binded by the European Aviation and Safety Agency, or short EASA. For every flight hour, you will have to pay the hourly rental rate of an airplane as well as the added cost of your flight instructor. On average, you can therefore expect to be paying about 225 euros per flight hour. Do note though that depending on aircraft type, aircraft condition, as well as the instrument panel, different prices may apply. It can be more or can be less. For example, this G1000 instrument panel looks very nice and modern, but it's going to drive up the hourly cost of your airplane significantly. If we therefore take the 45 hours of minimum flight time times the 225 euros per hour, we can therefore expect to be paying on the low about 10,000 euros. That is very unlikely though. The industry standards dictates that about 60 to 70 hours are needed to conclude your private pilot's license. Therefore, on the high you can expect to be paying about 16,000 euros. In my case, I needed 50 hours and 1 minute on the dot, and I had to pay about 12,000 euros. The practical part isn't everything. While it is a lot of fun to keep on flying and to keep on practicing, you will still have to sit down for about 100 hours, most of it in self-study, and study different lessons, including meteorology, physics and aerodynamics, human error, navigation, and more. For ground school, you can expect on the low to be paying about 1,000 euros, especially if you only get an online course, all the way up to 2,000 euros on the high if you go to a traditional sit-down classroom. In my case, it was about 1,800 euros. Whenever you get an offer from your flight school, which probably will be between 12 to 15,000 euros, something in between, always the 45 hours of minimum flight time plus the cost of your ground school is going to be included in that. Now, the reason for this video is to show you kind of the hidden costs and what else you can expect if you were to start with your very own flight training. Which brings us to hidden cost number one. These are going to be your books and your tools. If you only get some ebooks, you will probably only have to pay about 200 euros. These books include all the different lessons, as well as you get some tools, like for example this kneeboard, an analog flight computer, as well as a map of your specific region. On a high, you can expect to be paying about 500 euros, especially if your books are printed out. Now, in my case, I paid even a little more as I got some extra maps, like for example this Italy North map, Germany South, and France Southeast. On to hidden cost number two. These are going to be your examination fees for your theoretical and your practical exam. The theoretical exam can go as low as 50 all the way up to 150. Do keep in mind though that if you were to fail your test, you're going to have to retake it and therefore repay the fee again. The same accounts for your practical exam, which usually takes about 100 to 250 euros on a high. Again, if you fail, you have to pay again. Hidden cost number three is going to be your medical certificate. There are going to be two types, a class 1 medical certificate or a class 2 medical certificate. If in the future you do want to continue and get either your commercial pilot's license or your air traffic pilot's license, you will need a class 1 medical certificate. That one in Austria costs about 800 euros. For your private pilot's license, you will only need your class 2 medical certificate, which you can get for about 150 euros. As a further upkeep cost, later on in the future, your class 1 medical certificate will have to be renewed every year. So that means every year you have to pay the 800 euros. Meanwhile, the class 2 medical certificate only every 5 years. Hidden cost number four is going to be your radio communications exam. Now, the good part about this is that the terminology and the procedures whenever you're operating your radio are going to mostly be in self-study. That means you will only have to pay the examination fee. In case of Austria, it was about 130 euros. Do keep in mind that depending on which country you're in, be it Italy, France, Germany, Poland, and so on, there might be different prices. In my case, I even got some extra help. I got a teacher and some lessons, and therefore paid 300 euros for lessons alone, and therefore 430 in total. Now, hidden cost number 5 is going to be your most expensive as well as the most valuable skill that you will acquire during your flight training. And this one is going to be your landings. Now, it is again very hard to calculate, as it first of all depends a lot on your own talent as well as the frequency of your practice sessions, as well as whatever the airport or the airfield charges per landing. Now, I've seen some students be done with only 100 landings, some need more than 160 landings. Some airports only charge around 5 euros per landing, others charge all the way up to 25 euros per landing. In my individual case, and here's where I can give you an exact figure, I made about 138 landings at 5 different airports and paid about 2,200 euros all in all. The next 2 costs are somewhat optional. The first one is going to be your English language proficiency test. The good part about Europe is that you don't actually need to talk in English. For example, my mother tongue is German, and therefore, as I have studied the radio procedures in German as well, I can communicate inside the airspaces of Austria and Germany in German. However, once I want to leave their airspaces, I would either have to talk in their national language or in English. From an airplane's perspective, Europe is very, very small. Therefore, I highly recommend that you do get your English language proficiency test. However, it is not mandatory. You can expect to be paying about 170 euros for your test. Optional cost number 2 is going to be your headset. Now, the great part about this is whenever you rent your plane, there's already going to be a headset included in there which you can use. If you do want to get one for as cheap as possible, there are some out there for 160 euros. However, they aren't recommended as their noise reduction isn't really good and you do want to keep some healthy ears for the future. It does get very loud inside an airplane. In my case, I got this Clark Kent for about 400 euros. And right about now, these Bose A20s are really, really popular, which go for about 1,100 euros. On the low end, we can therefore expect to get the private pilot's license as cheap as 12,000 euros. But that is very unlikely, unless maybe you're the grandson of a World War II ace and therefore have already a lot of innate talent. The high end of about 24,000 euros also seems a little bit too much. Most likely you're just going to be paying between 17 to 20,000 euros. In my case, I paid about 17,300 euros. Now, what about the future? Once you have acquired your private pilot's license, the good thing about it is your private pilot's license is going to be valid for life. However, only once it is accompanied by a valid Class 1 or Class 2 medical certificate. At the same time, during your flight training, you will receive a class rating for single-engine piston of land-based aircraft. You can also get your single-engine piston for water-based aircraft if you fly a seaplane. This class rating is valid for exactly 2 years. In these 2 years, you are expected to fly for about 12 hours and an extra hour with a flight instructor in order to be able to renew your class rating for another 2 years. That means if you want to calculate the upkeep cost, and we calculate with an average price of about 200 euros per flight hour, you can expect to be paying about 2,400 euros in 2 years, or about 100 euros a month. You will mostly be flying a 2-seater or maybe even a 4-seater, so get some friends, get some family, and split the cost evenly between everyone. Therefore, you get to fly more, you get to gain more experience, and you get to have more fun. If you want to look even further into the future, after about 70 hours of flight time, you can get your multi-engine piston rating, which then allows you to fly an aircraft with 2 engines or more. And even further down the line, after 200 hours of flight time, you can get your commercial pilot's license as well as an air traffic pilot's license. With both of these, you are entitled to a salary. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Leave a like, comment down below, subscribe, and if you could, I would very much appreciate it if you support my Patreon. All the proceedings will be reinvested into producing more videos, into producing higher quality videos, and to keep on flying and accumulating more experience. Thank you.